So one of the very interesting and beautiful and expansive things about exploring and allowing the qualities of yin um, to open and expand and allow us to settle in and explore this inner domain is that there's no starting place, there's no goal. The goal is where we always are. So I would just invite you to just become aware of wherever your presence is landing. If you're feeling your breathing, if you're feeling a variety of subtle sensations, if you're aware of your environment in any way, if there's thoughts that are swirling around and chattering in the space of the mind, it doesn't matter. And also notice, and this is a noticing that we can really, keep weaving into this exploration, is just noticing that whatever it is, wherever your presence appears to land, your awareness appears to land, that it's subtly changing. And then I would just simply like to suggest you take this as sort of an internal reverberation. And nothing we need to do with this, but just let it reverberate through whatever it is you're currently aware of. And that is just simply this. I could be with this more subtly. I could be with this more subtly. And then this allows you to slow down this process of noticing, slow down this process of taking your illuminated, expansive awareness and then directing it into a point of attention. So slowing down the process of going from thoughts to sensations to breath to environment to thoughts. It can happen rather quickly, yes. This is what happens when we're in the world. One thing is triggering, another thing is triggering another thing, and it's just exhausting sometimes. It just causes a sort of a hum of anxiety in the nervous system. So the echo, the reverberation, is that whatever you settle on, I could be with this more subtly. I could be with this more subtly. And just let that permeate and soften whatever it is you're exploring. Still, it's going to morph into something else, but see how deep into this sensitivity of your experience you can go. So ultimately, the exploration of yoga is not the thought, is not the breath, is not the physical body, is not the emotional sensations. It's the experiencing of them. It's the quality of experience that goes from often very reactive and coarse to refined and sensitive and subtle. So let's just take a couple of minutes and I'll just allow you to, in your own sense of freedom and space, just begin this. Just allow your awareness to settle on anything that arises, to begin to investigate it. And as you investigate it, I could be with this more subtly. And just to know, this is not a, a practice that has any results at all. There's no final resting place here. There's even really no revelation, yes? Because if there is revelation in this, then again, explore that more subtly. There's simply an open-ended, almost bottomless exploration of the beautiful subtlety of our experience if we're willing to slow down enough and to and just to appreciate it, really, because this is not something that we have to really there's no beginner or advanced here. Your experience is your experience, and when we relax and we bring our energy inward, we all have this capacity to soften into the subtlety of it. So this invitation then is extended throughout all of these poses that we'll do and through the entire practice today. So let us come on up, if you will. Although I do know it'd probably be wonderful just to stay here and explore subtlety for the whole class, but we can do that with, add a little bit of discomfort with that as well. So what I would like to do is I would like you to have the large bolster if you have one. And if you don't have one, just get some pillows that can approximate the height. It's really the height we want for the shoulders. And then something, I'm going to use the small bolster for my head, but you could also use a towel or a blanket for your head. So I'll just show this with the towels and the pillows instead of the bolster. So it doesn't really matter which you have. And then I want to just show something because for years, showing this in person, it often causes a bit of confusion. And for me, it's just very, very simple, but I think there's something in the translation when we're on our back and we're trying to do this. So the first time around when we do this, we're simply going to allow the arms to come over the head and relax backward. And I'll show you that in a moment. Then the second time, because I want to get from the elbow up into the tricep muscles and into the shoulder girdle in a different position, what we're going to do with the hands, and I'll explain this when we're in, but maybe if you could see it or just listen carefully. So the arms now will be over the face. Yeah, so I'm just going to show it this way. And then what we're going to do, very simple instructions. We're just going to have the palms facing each other. Yes? So the palms, not the back of the hand, facing each other. Then we're going to simply turn the palms outward. So the palms are now facing outward. The back of the hands are touching each other. And then without twisting the wrists, and this is the most important part, don't twist the wrists, place the palms back together. So you just slide the palms back together, interlock the fingers. It'll look something like this. And then we'll straighten the elbows. Palms facing, turn out, don't twist the wrist. That's the most important part. If you twist the wrist, then you're lost. Palms together, interlock fingers, and then that will be the second go around. So to set up for this, and you could go higher than this if you want, even with the bolsters, because if the arms immediately come back to the floor, that means your shoulders have a deeper range of motion, so you'll need more height. So I could add, I don't know how my shoulders would be with all of this height, but I could add another blanket to this, or you could add something to your large bolster. And what we simply want to do here is we want to place the shoulders themselves on this contraption. So typically in our backward bends, we arch and go deeper, but this is just for the shoulders, yeah? And then if you're wanting to, or you'd like to let the neck dangle down, that's fine, but be careful with the pinching and the tweaking of the neck. And we'll take the blanket, your extra blanket, yeah, and just have some support. And then just let your arms relax out to the side. Let the shoulders open a bit here before we do anything with the arms. Yeah. So shoulders are on your bolstering, whether it's bolster or pillows. Head only is draped back. Arms are at the side. And then if you have not yet expanded and felt into your rib cage yet today and felt the length and the depth of your exhalation, just breathe a little bit deeper here. Breathe with an intention to, let the ribs separate a bit, let the respiratory diaphragm have a little bit more upward and downward movement, and feel that you are emptying the lungs as much as possible when you exhale. Good. So this first time around, let's just simply bring the arms up over the head, just intuitively. We're not necessarily putting the hands together. If you'd like to just lightly interlock your fingers, you could. You could also let your arms separate out a bit. You could let one arm go a little bit deeper than the other. The more you can keep the elbows straight here, the better. And if the arms just immediately touch the floor, you may need a little bit more height. So we don't want that mid back under the bolstering. We want the shoulders. So if you have it in the mid back, the shoulders will come lower to the floor. The arms will touch the floor. You won't get the full benefit of this in the shoulder. So if you need to make that adjustment, the shoulders are going to be on the bolstering, and then you can allow the weight of the arms to pull you into this this rotator cuff complication of shoulder girdle. And then just try to relax. Simply allow the echo to vibrate, that I could be with this more subtly. And again, it doesn't matter what has arisen. We're not so much interested in the what. We're interested in the fact that you can experience this, and we allow the coarseness and the superficial layer of the experience to then soften into subtlety. And so please relax your arms now. So just bring them back to a place where they're most relaxed. And if you need to make any adjustments, we're going to do this again with the arms a little tighter. So if you need to lessen the height of the shoulders, if you need to elevate them a bit, again, if the bolstering is in the mid back, you want to adjust so it's just the shoulders on there. And then we're just allowing the arms to rest now before we go back into it. Good. So if you're able to or open to it, let's adjust the arms like I suggested earlier. If not, just do intuitively what comes naturally to you. But what we're going to do is we'll now bring the hands so they're up over the face. So you're looking right at your hands with your elbows straight, the palms together. And then turn the hands out so the palms are facing outward. And then without twisting the wrists at all, just slide the palms back together. Interlock the fingers. If you can press the palms together and if you can straighten the elbows, this is nice. And then just slowly let the arms drift back over the head. Bending the elbows is just moving a little bit out of the tension, the contraction. So if you need to do that, feel free to do that. That's sort of like a safety release to come out of so much tension. So you can kind of play with that. And this, this invitation to explore with increasing subtlety, one of the benefits of this is just by the nature of that invitation, that we're not manipulating the sensation. We're not manipulating the experience. We're not trying to push it away or improve it. We're simply exploring how do we allow it to be increasingly subtle. And in a way, just be amazed at how deep subtlety can actually be in relation to experience, and how the shifts can then shift almost imperceptibly, how a sensation can morph into a feeling. And if we're not careful and we're not subtle and we're not conscious, we don't know how we got there. So you're exploring a mysterious and a non-linear system. Good. So once again, please, let's relax the arms. And then from here, you can just simply bend your knees and put your feet on the floor and just roll to either side. Hopefully there's not too much mid-lower back compression here, but just take your time and move slowly and just roll over to the side. We're not going to take a rest yet. There's a ways to go, but we just want to really start encouraging the body to move slow and to be sensitive to all of these transitions. One of the things when I opened, when I suggested that that there is a teacher that is indescribable and without form. So when we bring that into our yoga, we realize that ending a posture is a profound teacher. Beginning the posture is a profound teacher. Being in the posture is a profound teacher. So we're developing a sensitivity to just this sort of energetic in and out and in and out and contracting and expanding, and then all of the feedback that we get, all the sensory experience, and we get to slow down and draw it inward. So let's come on up, please. And when you sit up, let's pull the right leg in towards you. So we just have that, no, excuse me, the left leg. Let's start with the left leg in. I want the right leg on top. So you're just placing this left leg so it's out about parallel to your body. And then if you're able to take the right leg and bring it onto this left calf, this would be our in square. So we have an in square, an open square, and an elevated square. So this would be the in square. If this is not accessible to you, I put a blanket out front so I could allow my ankle to soften on the blanket and just let that right leg be out front. Yeah, sometimes we do this intentionally, the out one, but if the tighter one is not accessible to you, just let it open up. And then let's take the forward bend nice and slowly. So you're feeling that there's an involvement and an engagement of the entire spine. Your spine is able to undulate and articulate, especially relaxing the head, support the upper body weight as you will. And just relax.
So this can be very, very informative when we're working with pain and any level or any kind of discomfort. And this is precisely what we want it to be. We want it to be informative. We wanted to provide guidance for us and give us, truthful and honest feedback. So the yoga is really about learning to relate to the experience as much more as let's say, a textural flow instead of interpreting good or bad. So very challenging when we come into anything that feels a bit uncomfortable is immediately go to an interpretation of good or bad, pleasure or pain. So that's what I would call a course level. Yes, it's very natural. But as we drift deeper into the subtlety of the experience, we can start to see this flow that has a certain texture. This is the subtlety that I'm talking about. And this is why we want to feel safe. We don't want to feel that we're so deep in that the pain is threatening us. If the pain feels threatening and we begin to struggle, we cannot do this exploration because we'll immediately interpret it as unsafe. So back away from unsafe, back away from any sense of injury or struggle, and allow yourself to relax in much more into the experience as a feeling of texture and flow, and explore it beyond your need to interpret it. So let's release now. Come on up slowly. And again, the teacher is embedded in the ending as well as the beginning, as well as the depth of the pose. So just stay close to what you're feeling as this energy starts to shift a bit. And then you can allow the legs to relax out. And we're going to go right back to where we were with the shoulders. So same thing. This time I'm going to use the bolster instead of the blankets. So what I was saying is if your shoulders easily go, you can put the second bolster on top just so you have more height. But I know my shoulders don't need that. So I'll use that as a little pillowing.
So again, this is not for the mid back so the shoulders dip over the bolster. This is to place the shoulders themselves on the bolstering. Yep. We just want this height. So it's going to restrict the shoulder girdle. Yep. And then relax here for a bit, and then we'll have the arms go back the same way we did and make sure the head is supported. So just take some time to relax here for a bit. And so very slowly, let's allow the arms to come over the head. And again, we're doing this in a way that's unique to you. Just let the shoulders and the weight of the arms guide you. Again, the more we bend the elbows, the more we release the tension. But whatever works here, we're just really just feeling into it, and then we'll tighten it up for the second round. Good. So you can relax the arms. We'll just take a moment here before we go in for the second time. I guess in a way, you could say what we're also really exploring is trying to discern if what we think is happening is really happening. This is why I'm suggesting to notice the quality of experiencing. You know, what is this experience you're having? And before we judge it or before we begin interpreting it, is it what we think it really is? And this oftentimes takes a great patience and a letting go of what we think it is and settling into it and feeling like I said earlier, the textural flow of it. And then allowing that mantra to reverberate. Can I be with this more subtly? Can I be with this more subtly? And this is how we deepen. This is how we open up into, new territory of exploring the body. So let's bring the hands up over the face again, so you can see the hands. I hope this has been quite simple for everyone. The palms facing together, and then we'll turn the palms out. So the palms are facing out. The back of the hands are facing each other, even touching if you like. And then without twisting the wrists, don't even think about twisting the wrists.
bring the palms together, just slide them together. You can do it the other side if you'd like, what you did from the first side. Interlock the fingers, press the palms together. If you're able to straighten the elbows, and then try to bring it all back without bending the elbows. So even if you want to hover, we're not saying they need to be anywhere. So sometimes just to hover with the elbows straight is nice, because that tendency for the elbows to bend is just an immediate release of the tension in the shoulders. We want this pressure, this compression and stress in the shoulders.
And certainly I must say, it's interesting, the way that everything, yoga just weaves everything together. It's such an incredible technology that way. So what I'm saying about exploring the body and things maybe not being what we think they are, and having the patience and the sense of presence to explore that, same thing when yoga offers this amazing invitation to explore the nature of ourself. So in order to do that, we have to find a place to let go of who we think we are. So we let go of what we think we know, we let go of who we think we are, and this is the doorway. This is where the exploration begins. If we want to step into yoga, we let go of what we think we know, we let go of who we think we are, and then we explore. We investigate. Good. So let's release the arms back to a comfortable place. Maybe as when we began, let's take a few deeper, fuller breaths to feel the rib cage open, the respiratory diaphragm loosen a bit, or at least feel it. Yes, connection with the respiratory diaphragm. Affecting so many processes and systems in the body. So good to get to know it. And then the same thing, let's put the feet on the floor. We'll roll off to the side. We'll take a moment here. And we'll do the other side of that forward bend. Good, so let's come on up. And same thing that we did, we'll just bring the right leg in this time instead of the left leg first. So right leg comes in, and then the left foot can come up onto that right calf if this is something that your hips and knees allow. If the hips and knees are not ready for this, I totally understand. Just let that foot come out. So you have a nice open position, whatever is most compatible. And then just a nice relaxing inward, no sense of stretching. I think I said that earlier when I was just sort of describing the yin. The difference between stretching, what stretching is, and what this stressing is that we're doing here, we're applying, meditative, intentional stress to the body. Pressure is just very wild. I was going to say wildly. It's wildly and widely misunderstood. in relation to the body, the difference between stressing and stretching. So stressing is any tension that we apply to the tissues, whether those tissues are muscular, whether those tissues are ligamental, and everything in between. We're applying the stress, we're compressing in. You can feel that right now. The stretching is what happens as a result of that stress when we release and open and relax. Is there a bit of elongation? Is there a bit of energizing? A whole cadre of things happen from the results of stress, including what we would call stretching. So we're entering into these fascial compartments, if you will, that hold the muscles in just tremendous tension, tremendous crushing pressure. We're easing in to this system, this myofascial system. And then when we come out and release, there's maybe a little bit more room for the muscle to breathe or elongate or have space. That's what we would call stress. And same thing with the ligaments, although we don't really have a lot of movement, but there's a chemical molecular reaction to the compression. If you are feeling intensity of sensation and discomfort, can you be with this more subtly? If you are consciously breathing and feeling the presence of the breath, can you be with this more subtly? If the thoughts are taking you to seemingly unrelated places, can you be with those thoughts more subtly? So let's gently emerge. Just unstack the spine here, or restack it, I should say. And then let's lie down, and now we will take a rest. So we'll take a little bit longer rest here. it's very interesting to me that there's so much energy, collective energy right now, considering transformation. And what's really interesting to me about this is that this is precisely what yoga is. Yoga has never been about collecting more information. Yoga has always been, for centuries, has been about transformation. Because what yoga really allows us to experience, the teachings of yoga, is that your history, your world, your traumas, your joy, your lineage, your relationship, all of these are in the body. And if we're attempting to transform from a disembodied intellectual conceptual place, it's just extremely limiting. So what yoga is saying is, when you feel something in your body, stop, slow down, and feel it. Because this is connected to something. This is a deep, just a very deep, visceral, somatic connection to so many things that we're holding. And oftentimes, these holdings, this somatic contraction, if you will, doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel comfortable. So we immediately go to our habits of mind. We immediately go to our habits of concept and think that's where the transformation is happening. But the only true transformation is in the body. And this is why yoga is such a personal and an intimate and a unique practice to you. It has nothing to do with the shape of the asana and the flexibility of the hamstring, even the level of understanding of the scriptures. It has to do with you meeting yourself honestly in what your cells and your tissues and your bones are holding, because it's all being held in the body. And we feel this as contraction if we're not able to breathe into the expansion. So I do believe with all of my heart that if we truly want to transform, that we begin with our own bodies, and we start to slow down our judgments and our interactions. And when we feel something, don't ignore it, don't bypass it, don't suppress it, really feel it. Make a mental note of it. Take it into your practice, take it into your asana, and explore it. Good. So let's come on up, please. And I want to, well, I'll just show it both ways, because I know a lot of people do now have bolsters, and that's a good thing. So it works very well if you have this small bolster. It's ideal for this. This is one of my favorite, if not one of my favorite, lower lumbar support compression postures. So if you have the little bolster, I'll show it with and without. Put that there, and then take a blanket and roll it up. And the height will determine the amount of compression. So I'm going to just roll my blanket up, because it's a nice thick blanket, about halfway. And then I'm going to take this small thin bolster and put it over just the end of the blanket. So not halfway, but just so one end of the small bolster is touching the floor, and then we'll sit in front of it and roll the lumbar curve over it. Yeah. So this is one way to set it up. And what we will do is we'll sit in front of it. Like I said, it's good to maybe hold the blanket in, keep the feet on the floor, and you'll feel it conforming there to that lumbar curve. If you need something for your head, sometimes that's nice not to pinch the neck. So it'll come back, and then if you need something for the head, yes. And then if you need to adjust, you just unroll the blanket a little bit more either way. If you need to come a little bit deeper or a little less compression, we want to set up to be here for a while. So if you don't have this small bolster, then you keep the blanket rolled. So we always want the roll under there. And then just take a second blanket, or I'm actually using a towel and I'm folding it and it's mimicking the shape of that bolster. And I'm just putting one end of it over. So it's really pretty much the same thing. I'll just see how that feels. So the same thing, we want to have both buttocks on the floor, tuck this in so it's close to the sacrum. It's like pressing up against the sacrum, feet on the floor. Oh yeah, it's just as nice. Roll over it, except I don't have the upper body, as much upper body support with the towel. So then I would get something under my head. That's much better. And then you can let the legs relax out. So set yourself up in this. So then what becomes really primary if we're going to use the invitation of yoga for transformation is that we begin to really cultivate ways to feel very anchored and be able to soothe ourselves. So let us be able to, and how do we anchor ourselves and how do we soothe ourselves? So then we're not needing others to do that. We're not needing situations to do that. We're not needing circumstances or devices to do that. So this is very primary to be able to anchor ourselves. In yoga, we use the language, the ground of being, to be able to soothe ourselves. In our niyamas, we would call this contentment. And then that gives us just a tremendous range to explore this quality of transformation, because we're not needing the transformation in order to feel different or better or grounded. We're already anchored, we're already content, and then the exploration opens from there. and this is just an extremely valuable study. If we open up the niyamas a bit, the second limb of our Ashtanga yoga, we initially come upon purity, also known as clarity. So a sense of clarity in this exploration, a contentment to be able to just simply be with what is and be okay with it, and then austerity. And austerity is the willingness to pare one's life down to simply what's necessary for this exploration. It doesn't mean to do without, it doesn't mean to struggle and suffer with our environment, but it means to let go of what's not working, to keep paring down. So what is necessary for this transformation? What provides fuel for the fire of transformation, and what extinguishes it, what smolders it? And I have to say, at least in my own experience, the willingness and the capacity to really anchor oneself and soothe oneself in some ways allows for more intimacy with others and more authentic relationship, because we're not energetically hoping the other does it for us. So it fundamentally can change our relationship really with the world, with others and the world. Good, so let's put the feet on the floor and just move the knees back and forth a little bit just to see if there's any muscular tension being held back here. I'm hoping that you set this up so it was just a slow, consistent, relatively mild compression, but when we come out, that those fascial compartments and the muscles themselves are doing a little dance to come back to equilibrium, so we want to be careful with that. And then with the feet on the floor, let's roll off of this to your side. And again, we're not going to take much of a rest in between. We're basically doing the same thing we just did with front and back. So just sort of a theme, I would suppose. This is also, this particular class works extremely well for a home practice because of its simplicity. So let's come on up then and open up the legs to just a nice wide straddle without forcing or pinching the hip flexors. So just whatever is a nice straddle for you. And then if your hamstrings feel a little bit dehydrated, a little inhibited, you may want some support to come forward. Sorry about that. That's the first time that has ever happened. I don't know if you can even still hear me. I think I'm out of my own meeting. I probably can't. Oh, I'm back. Let's see. Is everybody still there? Sorry about that. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but I had my, yes, you could hear it. Yes. Sorry about that. Just had my ringer off. I don't know. But don't let that, no, really, that was intentional. I want to see how focused you are, and look, everybody's up looking at me. That's a little test. I'm going to keep my phone on from now on to see if you can be distracted. No, we're just coming forward in a nice straddle. So just relax into it. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Just relax. Yeah, and if by chance you have brought the legs out a little too wide, then again, we don't want to force that SI joint or the hips. So use the forward bolstering appropriately, bring the legs in a little bit, release that. So always the quality of just softening, but let the shoulders relax as well. So we're not letting that lumbar tension spiral up into the neck and shoulders. Cervical spine, always a part of this. So just relax the entire articulation of the spine and just soften in. And if you feel like you become distracted, whether it's the environment, yes, my phone here, or anything in your environment or a repetitive thought, don't judge it, don't push it away. See if you can be more subtle with it. See if there's a subtlety to this. See if there's a pattern to this. See if there's an energy to this. Whatever you're experiencing, allow yourself to be drawn to it in a curious way. Oh, and actually, part of the shift that we're making in this exploration, if we want to call this a mind-body exploration, is we're not trying to quiet the mind. We're not trying to clear the mind or push the thoughts away. We're trying to see that a thought is just something we're experiencing, no different than a point of discomfort in the back of the leg, no different than a loud car going by outside. It's simply an experience, and it becomes our relationship to this experience that becomes our yoga, that becomes our exploration. So we're not, clearing the mind is a misconception. We only can clear the mind if we're dead or enlightened. So we don't try to clear the mind. We try to observe the quality and the texture, the textural flow of a thought, the textural flow of a sensation in the body, the coming and going of external environmental senses.
Good. So let's come on up from here, please. And we're just going to simply settle right back into that backward bend. So hopefully you still have that set up. If not, I'll just show it quickly again. It's just either your towel or your blanket over the roll, but hopefully it's still back there because we didn't disturb it. So just having the end of something over the roll, the blanket, or the small bolster. And again, really taking the time to make sure that the compression, the stress that we're applying is really appropriate so you can receive it, really. That's what we're really trying to do, is receive this, allow the body to receive this. So too deep, not good. Too shallow, not good. Just right is good. Can I be with this more subtly? And then through this practice of subtlety, we get to experience that whatever it is, any sensation, any perception, any thought actually has an inconceivable depth. And it begins to break this spell that we can be under, that reality is so fast and complex and stressful, on and on.
but just the slowing down into the experience and to see. We don't even need to label the experience mundane or complicated, because at this level that doesn't apply. It's just experience. So we're opening up our experiential range of motion, if you will, to see that all experience has this texture and this richness and this inconceivable depth to it. And I would say, not particularly, but since we're working with discomfort, when we're working with pain, what an incredible opportunity to explore this incredible depth that this teacher of discomfort has to offer us. So talk about the teacher that is indescribable and without form. Certainly discomfort would fit that description very well. So part of our transformation is our relationship, our fundamental relationship with emotional, psychological, and physical discomfort. So once again, let's put your feet on the floor, have a little swaying, a little knees back and forth. Make sure you feel released from the muscular pain before we roll out of this. So do take your time. And then when you're ready, you can roll off of this. And I'm going to suggest something a little bit different. I think it's worth trying, especially, often in these forward bends, we're so concerned with the hamstring. And very often do we give the Achilles tendon much thought. So what I'm suggesting, if you can see me, if not, I'll just describe it. I have a blanket under my calf muscles. My heels are on the floor, a blanket folded. So pretty much the width is somewhere between your full straddle and hip width distance. So I'm just coming out of my hips at an angle that's in between those two. You can modify that as you like, but I've added a blanket, not much thickness. I've just folded it over a couple of times for a little bit of height, just a tiny bit of elevation, but affecting and sort of releasing a bit the tension between the heel and the hamstring, especially into that Achilles tendon. And then the same forward bend. It's a relaxed lower back, coming into it gently. Heels are on the floor, calves are supported a little bit. And then if you need more support to support your upper body weight, if indeed the hamstrings are contracting, then just support however you need, whatever works. Try to let the neck, the shoulders, the weight of the head relax as well. So before you actually come on up, just wherever you are, however far forward, just let your head just start to go side to side, just very gently. And whatever your experience is of this, also just to have some imagery that this upper spine is traveling and communicating and connecting with the lower spine. So it's just a good remembering. It's a good remembering that this physical body that can, you know, feel dense here and feel intense here and open here at just the level of its aliveness. It's not fragmented. We are not fragmented. We are not dissipated. And so what yoga is saying is, let's find ways to recognize this. You know, okay, to bring our focus here and there, but we want to also allow this awareness to be present, this wholeness to be present. This is, you know, the very core of yoga, that we not only are we not separate from anything internally, we're not separate from anything externally. And so how to really experience awareness and consciousness and experience as this open-ended. So let's come on up. So come on up, please. And then from here, let's let the legs relax out. Well, the legs are already out. I'm sorry. Let's just relax back down and we'll take a rest from here. And this is why, you know, I've often sort of had to really think through calling yoga a practice, because I've always wondered, like, what am I practicing for? But practice can be a very, you know, relevant description if what we're practicing is this subtlety, if what we're practicing is this this feeling of wholeness, this quality of experience, and to start to tease apart the objects of experience from the nature of experience, to start to look at the difference between just something that's arising and how we almost instinctively, but it's more habitually, superimpose an interpretation on it. So yes, this does take some practice. And so if the physical body is overly contracted and in great pain and dehydrated and lacking a certain flow of our prana and chi, it's more challenging to practice this. It's more challenging to feel this open-ended aliveness, this wisdom of the body, to feel joyful and open to this exploration if the body's not comfortable. So the asanas are a way for us to open up these pathways, open up these neural pathways of kindness and respect, to feel safe and comfortable in the body. And then the exploration becomes one of experience and subtlety and consciousness. So you can pretty much stay on your back here. What I would like to do is just have two things. If you have the small bolster, you can use that. If you don't, just a nice heavy blanket will work. But I would also like you to make a roll out of, well, I guess you can't stay on your back because you have to roll some things up. So I would like you to roll up a towel or a blanket, and this will again go under the upper spine. So if you can see, I'm not putting this at the back of the head. Putting it at the back of the head makes my chin go down. Putting it under my upper spine so the head can be on the floor allows the chin to go up and supports the curve of my upper spine. And then what we're going to simply do, once you have something under the neck to support it, we're going to put the feet on the floor and let both legs just go to the right side so we're in a reclining twist. The small bolster or the heavier blanket is just to put over that left leg on top. So what this does is it gives a little weight to the twist, but it also keeps the legs from opening up so much. So sometimes that just compromises the twist. So if you bring the legs up and nice and high and get a twist in this lower left lumbar, sometimes if you weight it on top, the small bolster works great, or a heavy blanket. Then we have the sort of support of that weight. And then what I'm going to suggest with the head, I'm not going to say either side, but because you have this under the neck muscles, you can put the head side to side, and if you find some tension, just let it soften into that tension. And you can change this over time. So if you can go left and hold it for a while. You can come back to neutral. You can go to the right. So just kind of play with this. And even, maybe I should say, especially with this ongoing, moment by moment unfolding, this invitation to relax and to rest. So even with this, can you be with this more subtly? Don't just assume because you're not doing anything that you're as relaxed as you can be. This is an assumption, if you're making it, that is worth exploring. Good. So you can adjust the angle of your head so we can move the legs. So just make sure it's in a good place. And then you can bring the legs up. We'll maybe remove the weight first, obviously. And then we'll allow the legs, if you would like them to straighten them out first, that's sometimes nice, and just sway the hips a bit. And then you can allow them to go to the other side. And then the same thing, I'm just inviting you to put some weight on top there. It's just optional, but again, it can keep the twist a little more compact, and the weight can be very nice if it's appropriate. And then allow the head, whenever you feel called, to just go from side to side. And if you feel something that's contracted or some density, just slowly lean into it. In verse 4 of the Ashtavakra Gita, it says, in pain and in pleasure, thou art serene. In hope and despair, thou art serene. In life and in death, thou art serene. Good. So once again, you can bring your upper spine to a safe place. You can remove the weight off that top leg, bring the legs up, straighten the legs out. We'll just take a few moments here. And, of course, we become aware, and it's not just simply the awareness between, my language to you, but also the language that you're using in your own self-commentary that, obviously we need, there's no getting around the use of language, even in a yoga practice. So we want the language to be able to point to something. But once we have that orientation, so the language in a way helps to orient us. Then if we can let that orientation, the specificity of language dissolve and move into the felt sense and move into the feeling intelligence, then we can start to see the difference between just naming something to orient ourselves and storytelling. So it's very different once if we name something and then we just start this habitual mechanical story about it, we're in a whole different realm. But can we use my language? Can we use your internal dialogue to get oriented, to name something, and then let that just soften, let that go to the periphery, and then go into a felt sense? What does this feel like? And then we come into the opening of and the layering of subtlety, the quality and texture of direct experience. So this is a good thing to play with. It's good to play with the difference between naming something and storytelling. And I think in general, if you start with once upon a time, that's probably storytelling, but I'm not so sure. So let's come on up, please. And you can use your big bolster for this. And this alone is a good reason. This particular thing we're going to do is a good reason to have a big bolster. So yes, but if not, you could take a blanket and just fold up a nice height that will equal this bolster, something like this. So you just fold a blanket, and this will be approximate, and it'll serve pretty much the same purpose, although you don't have sort of the subtlety of shifting with this sort of is bulkier, whereas we're going to use the end of the big bolster. So I'm going to show it with the big bolster, and you can use the blanket if that's all you have. So what we're going to do with the big bolster is we're going to sit on one end of it, and we'll keep the feet on the floor and then just vertically. So we're laying the spine down so the other end catches a little below the scapula. I sometimes do this up into the scapula and just put the back of the head on the floor. What I'm going to suggest is go a little bit lower and let the shoulders come on the floor. So this is much more expansion of my thoracic cage here. And then we'll just let the arms relax down. Yeah. So you're nice. I don't have any shoulder blades on this at all. You could take your time to get there. If you can go there directly, that's good too. Yep. Good. So this will be with the big bolster. If you don't have the big bolster, then basically the same thing. We'll just take this block that you've built, this big pad, this bulky blanket, and place it low. Well, don't go too low. You're going to see, that's what I mean. You don't have the subtlety with the blanket. So if you go too low, you don't have the support of the bolster. This will pinch the lower back. So you have to be up into the scapula. Same general area. I'm just being a little perfectionist here, but this is nice too. It's just a little bit different, but doesn't really matter. So you'll be up into my scapula now on this blanket. Same thing, arms relaxed, legs let out. So we just have a nice thoracic cage opening. And just one other thing that's quite interesting about what I was just saying about making this discernment between naming something to get oriented and then opening up a more experiential exploration and telling stories. So from the container of yoga, so from the wisdom of yoga, what we call the self then is nothing more than just a collection of stories. So yes, what I was describing was a more visceral physical exploration into the body, but we can also do this exploration with our sense of self, the stories we tell that maintain this self-identity. So this is in yoga just a layer, yeah, just a sort of an illusory layer of who we think we are, because these stories have we become very fond of them, and they give us a sense of orientation. They give us a sense of self-identity, of self-esteem. They create this lovely fabricated ego. So what yoga is saying is, just as you're exploring the layers of the body, and we don't need to attach stories to your energy, we don't need to tell stories about your discomfort, we can explore it as a direct, visceral sensation. The same thing with this more vague sense of self, that we can start to dismantle, if you will, or relax the stories that we tell and see what is really there, see what is there in terms of our awareness, clear, open, present awareness. So this is interesting, and this is why we have this approach to yoga, because we also start to develop our capacity for contemplation, not taking any of these as belief systems or philosophies or mythologies, but just to sit in our own quiet, personal sense of contemplation. Because ultimately we will not be able to move beyond our trap of dualistic thinking until we actually see that that's what we're doing. So yoga, especially this quiet, this sort of deeper sitting with oneself, allows us to be able to see the nature and the trap of duality. And at this point, do feel free to, put the feet on the floor and maybe make a bit of an adjustment. This is a very interesting area, muscularly in the rhomboids here. A lot of tension gets sort of deepened into the fibers of the tissue. So If you want to just adjust this a bit, you can put the feet on the floor and move up or back a bit. And then if you're able to relax the legs out, especially if you widen them a bit, it can feel very stable and kind of invite the, the pelvis to give the sacrum a little bit of room. So if an adjustment is called for here, please feel free to make it, and we'll just stay for a bit longer here. Also a lovely place to just explore the complexity of the respiratory diaphragm. So as we have it expanded a bit, the rib cage up under the rim of the rib cage, when you take an inhalation, that muscle of the diaphragm starts to contract down a bit, just helping you make more room. When you exhale, when you let the breath out, that respiratory diaphragm folds up a bit. It's a lovely wave and moving motion. And when it restricts, I won't go into all the details, but it's restricting many, many things in your system and your organs, including your heart. So to just start to soften, you just start to relax the breath, but don't isolate. Don't think that the breath is ever restricted just to the lungs. The breath goes far beyond the boundary of the lungs. So this is just an ideal position to start to feel if there's any tension being held in this upper solar plexus under the rib cage. And again, don't force it, but can you become subtle with it? Subtle breathing, a subtle feeling, any naming, any mental imagery, subtle with your imagery. Can I be more subtle with this? Good. So you can put your feet on the floor now, please. And again, this is an interesting area, so allow some movement. You sort of feel safe, and there's a little bit of sway, so we're sort of unwinding that compression. Yeah, if this is what we're doing, we're not stretching, we're compressing, we're pressuring, we're stressing. And then the result of that is what's happening in terms of movement, elongation, cellular, hormonal changes. And then you can begin to, a couple of ways, if you'd like to bring the knees up to the chest and have some more movement, if you feel stable, not so easy to do on the folded blanket, however, but the bolster, or when you're done with your swing, you can just roll over onto your side and pull your knees up to your chest. And then your choice, we're going to close very shortly. So if you'd like to just come into your own Shavasana, whatever most relaxing for you, if you'd like to take a few moments here and sit up and close, that would be your choice. So we'll take some time. And as you're coming into your closing position, I just want to say one more thing. And this practice is obviously very close to how we're all holding our psychological and emotional and physical discomforts. And sometimes we can get into relationship with this discomfort where we can begin to take it seriously, or we can have concern about it. It can take oftentimes more focus than it needs. So the work that we do in the body, with the body, the relationship to the body, very, very good to almost think of it as dancing, to have times with the body, even if it's uncomfortable or in pain, where we can be playful with it, where we can be gentle with it, where we can break some of our patterns of movement and move differently. So the way that the body is holding, I said earlier, at the level of transformation, your body is holding everything. Everything is in the body. So we want to, especially if we're involved with this aging process at all, we don't want to take it too seriously. We want to feel like the energy has room to play and to be gentle and to have great compassion and loving kindness just for ourselves at the level of this physical body. Rest. Yes, good. So let's just take a moment and we will close our practice. I searched for myself and found only God. I searched for God and found only myself. Namaste.